Two of the most dominant aircraft makers that rule commercial airlines are Boeing and the Airbus. In today's story, you will find out how Airbus, a European multinational aerospace corporation, sold free aircrafts to arrive in America, how Boeing and Airbus compete against each other, what strategies did Airbus use to expand in North America, the setback Boeing and Airbus encounter, and how Airbus used other manufacturers to keep up production in America. Boeing started back in 1916, after two guys had developed a single-engine two-seat airplane, the B&W, one of whom was a timber merchant, William Boeing. They started off by building flying boats for the Navy during World War I. In the 1920s, they started selling planes to the U.S. military. By March 1919, the company started the airmail services. And then in 1928, William Boeing formed Boeing Airplane and Transport Corporation to have both manufacturing and airline operations. Sadly, the next year, a severe worldwide economic depression took place, the Great Depression. Business went on as usual for Boeing in the Depression. However, right after the Depression on February 1934, President Roosevelt ordered the cancellation of all airmail contracts. He then authorized the U.S. War Department to assist with delivering mail by air. This is also known as the airmail scandal. As it turned out, this was not the best of decisions. The Air Corps were not prepared to conduct a mail operation. Only half the routes were covered, and in the short 5 months, there were 66 accidents with 12 fatalities. The airmail service was completely restored to the airline on June 1, 1934. In September 1934, William Boeing resigned and sold all his stock. Before retiring, he wanted to ensure that the Boeing company was prepared for the future and handed the company over to one of his hand-picked engineers, Claire Egtvedt. In June 1934, Boeing engineer Ed Wells began design on the B-17 Flying Fortress. The aircraft was used in World War I, making Boeing a household name. Because of war, Boeing's focus was on military aircrafts, and their commercial sector was lagging behind. As the war ended, Boeing decided to develop an airline powered by turbojets, with enough range to cross the North Atlantic. The end result was the 707. This was the first jetliner from Boeing. 707 flew for the first time on December 20, 1957. The aircraft quickly won over passengers with its shorter flight time and the smooth ride. The 707 was followed by the 727 and 737. Sadly, an updated in 737, the 737 MAX, had its own issue, and two crashes in 2018 and 2019 took 346 lives. After releasing the 737, there was a demand for a plane twice the size of 707 to reduce cost per seat. Boeing went to the drawing boards and came up with a design for 747. This design almost forced them into bankruptcy. However, when the 747 took its first flight in 1969, it allowed airlines to offer affordable long-range air travel for the general public. Over 1,500 aircrafts were sold. So how did Airbus manage to get into a market that was heavily dominated by Boeing? Going into 1970s, Vietnam War created one of the most difficult eras for Boeing. Company went from having 109,000 employees to 38,000. Famously, a billboard was set up that read, "Will the last person to leave Seattle please turn out the lights?" European manufacturers that once were leaders in innovation saw this downfall, and they made a plan. A founder of Airbus, Roger Bettiol, said, "There was no European manufacturer that had ongoing designs or manufacture of an aircraft that could effectively compete worldwide with the American products." A decision was made between France and Germany to form a consortium and compete with Boeing. An agreement was signed between French, German, and British governments to strengthen their cooperation in the field of aviation technology. The following year, two manufacturers worked together. Their plan was to design and develop a 300-seat airliner for short-haul sector. A request for funding was made to the three governments, and on 25 July 1967, all three agreed to proceed. It was stated that 75 orders must be achieved by 31 July 1968. Fearing that the orders will not be fulfilled in time, British government withdrew for the proposal. They were, however, given a contract to produce aircraft wings. It was decided that the aircraft will be fully manufactured and assembled within the European countries. After working for years and spending $4.6 billion, Airbus had their first prototype. The A300 flew on 28 October 1972. With the first production version, the A300B, they were in commercial aircraft market. They were, however, not in the North American market. But then, in 1978, they decided to hand over 4 A300s to Eastern Airline for free on a 6-month trial. All Eastern Airline had to do was pay for the custom interior. At the end of the 6 months, Eastern Airline ordered 23 more Airbus aircraft. Airbus had arrived in America. In 1985, Airbus hired John Leahy to be their head of sales in North America. Leahy was known for his bold sales campaigns. By the time Leahy retired in January 2018, he had helped Airbus sell close to $1 trillion worth of jets. Leahy secured 145 aircraft with Northwest Airlines by telling them that they could order 10 A320s at the bulk discount of 100. If Northwest didn't like the A320s, they simply were stuck with 10 planes, while Airbus absorbed the risk. The strategy worked and Northwest ordered the remaining 90 aircrafts soon enough. Now Boeing's competition had entered their homeland. In 1991, Airbus launched the A340. To stay on top of Airbus, Boeing released the 777, and they signed an agreement with American Airlines to be their suppliers for 20 years. And in June 1997, Boeing signed similar 20 years agreements with Delta and Continental. In the same year, Boeing completed the largest merger in the aviation history by purchasing McDonnell Douglas Corporation for $13 billion. This merger allowed Boeing to grow their workforce to 200,000 employees, bringing total revenue of $48 billion in 1997. With just 377 sales, A340 had failed. The production of A340 ended in 2011. Airbus knew they could not compete against the twin-engine Boeing 777. In 2017, Boeing filed a complaint against Canadian Bombardier for their sales of C-Series to Delta. Boeing claimed that Bombardier unfairly benefited from government bailout subsidies. The U.S. Department of Commerce observed subsidies of 292% and intended to collect deposits accordingly for selling plane at a lower cost than they were produced. Bombardier went to Airbus to avoid tariffs. They wanted to manufacture the C-Series at their base in U.S. Alabama. Airbus purchased 51% of the C-Series and rebranded it as the A220. The U.S. International Trade Commission eventually found that Bombardier had done no harm to Boeing's business and scrapped the proposed tariff. Both manufacturers have had their failures and setbacks, like the time Boeing introduced the 787 Dreamliner, which was meant to be a lighter and more fuel-efficient aircraft. The aircraft was delayed, but it worked fine until 2013, when the aircraft was grounded by the U.S. Federal Aviation Administration due to risk of battery fires on the aircraft. In 2005, Airbus launched the A380, the world's largest commercial airline. But the A380 was too large, making it unprofitable when seats would go unfilled. Since 2005, a total of 57 airlines have canceled orders for the A380, including Emirates, Virgin Atlantic, and Lufthansa. Airbus and Boeing occupy one half of commercial airliner production. Where Boeing is much more present in North America, Airbus had majority of its revenue coming from Asia Pacific. Both manufacturers have had their ups and downs, and both have proved that they can adapt and evolve in challenging times. With strong finances and a team of bright scientists, engineers, other staff, they may remain the two dominant forces in the coming years. Until next time, have a good one.